Celebrating 45 years on the air, award-winning Farmweek is a production of Mississippi State University Extension.
Today on Farmweek, an update on bird flu still spreading across U.S. poultry farms. Plus, weather and water. Snowpack 6.5 feet a few months ago, down to nothing now. In southern gardening, potted plants Gary says will make your heart flutter. And in our feature, an unusual partnership in Colorado puts ranchers on land and students in classrooms. Farmweek starts right now.
Hello everyone, I'm Zach Ashmore.
And I'm Mike Russell. Great to have you with us again here on Farm Week. This Easter weekend, poultry and of course eggs very much on the radar. So too is bird flu, forcing the price of eggs up more than 50% since it was first reported in early February. This week brought more focus on the issue and what's causing the problem. Peter Tubbs has more.
Highly pathogenic avian influenza continued to spread among the nation's poultry herd this week, with cases reported across the country. 5 counties in Iowa confirmed avian flu in commercial poultry flocks, with an unconfirmed number of birds destroyed. Since January 1st, 23 states have reported cases of avian flu in either commercial or backyard flocks as the virus spreads through migrating bird species.
We've got wild birds that are carrying the virus. They don't succumb to it, but they can carry it. And where are we in the scheme of things in terms of migration of birds, right? We've got a couple of months yet to go. So that's why we've got to be acting quickly to contain it where it is.
The interaction between migratory birds and commercial chicken and turkey flocks occurs naturally and is difficult to control. Producers concerned about the health of their flocks will need to wait for the migration to end before potentially seeing relief. Quick action is paramount once a site is suspected of contracting the flu.
What you want to do is try to detect early, contain that site, quarantine that site, and then depopulate and dispose of those birds as quickly as you can, because that is the best way to prevent spread to other farms, is to keep it contained on a site.
The rapid containment has, so far, limited the spread of avian flu to isolated flocks that came into contact with the migratory birds. But producers need to remain cautious and continue using disease protocols.
So I think a large part of why we're not seeing that lateral movement farm to farm is because we've done a better job of acting quickly to contain the virus where it is, and that farms have implemented better biosecurity to protect their farms from movement. Now time will tell.
2 Iowa counties have been declared disaster areas, and live bird events have been canceled in the state for the immediate future. Egg and fresh poultry prices are expected to trend higher as the outbreak continues. While the percentage of the nation's bird crop affected by the virus is small, prices are rising due to the unknown arc of the outbreak. Prices for eggs and poultry spiked during the avian flu outbreak of 2014 and 2015.
In that story, you heard the word biosecurity, a concept very much in focus where bird flu is concerned. The USDA's Deputy Administrator in its Animal Plant Health Inspection Service, APHIS, says biosecurity begins with observing the birds.
It starts out perhaps with just simple malaise, that birds just don't feel good. They're quiet, more quiet than normal. They don't eat as much. They may not drink as much water. These are all signs that things aren't normal, and they need to be reported and they need to be looked into, and perhaps the flock needs to be tested. A simple gram of feces can infect an entire flock, and that could be on the bottom of your boot. You need to change your footwear when you go into the new facility, or have foot baths. You don't share equipment. You don't borrow equipment, because borrowing equipment from your neighbor borrows disease. Every step you can take to put a hurdle in place for this virus, the more chance you have of not getting it.
Weather very much in focus as well. Much of the nation's precip fell across the southeast and up the coast recently. The west again missed much of the moisture. A third of the region's water comes from snowmelt, and 2022 is off to a hot and dry start. Farm Week's Jonah Holland reports.
On April 1st, the peak snowpack measured near Phillips Station, California, was 66% below the normal average.
We had a very wet set of storms in October where we saw single-day highest rainfall totals ever in nearby areas. That was followed by an abnormally warm and dry November. And then we had a December for the record books where we stood at about 168% of average here in December. December 30th, we measured over 6.5 feet of snow. So 78 plus inches, now down to about 1 inch.
The snow season was off to a good start last fall, but since the start of the year, low moisture and high temps have melted most of the snow cover. The latest drought monitor from the University of Nebraska reveals only a slight improvement in conditions last week. The extended dry period has tightened drought's grip on much of the western half of the United States. This season has been one of the driest since the drought of 2012. Another week, another round of spring storms in the south. 13 tornadoes were reported last Tuesday, following 68 reports the day before, mostly across a region stretching from Mississippi to South Carolina. At least 3 people lost their lives. Here in the southeastern Georgia town of Pembroke, power crews worked to restore lines where they could, as other neighborhoods were beyond repair. Reporting for Farmweek, I'm Jonah Holland.
In other news, a bipartisan group of senators led by Iowa's Chuck Grassley have updated their bill aimed at helping cattle producers get a fair price in the cattle market. Grassley has been working for such reform for years. His Cattle Price Discovery and Transparency Act, introduced in November, is his latest attempt to level the playing field between producers and the meatpacking industry. Grassley and the other senators say they believe this version of the bill may be their best chance at pushing real reform across the finish line.
Ag Secretary Tom Vilsack had planned to visit Colorado this week in support of the president's investment in the U.S. Forest Service's 10-year infrastructure strategy. Instead, he stayed home in COVID quarantine. Nevertheless, other officials are engaged in a rural infrastructure tour there, a state hit particularly hard by wildfires. The trip comes as the Forest Service released its plan for implementing a $1.5 billion strategy for mitigating risk on more than 10 million acres of federal land.
Last week, we launched a multi-story effort here on Farm Week to cover in more detail the ever-growing role of women in agriculture. Recently, the group Mississippi Women for Agriculture met during its annual conference to expand its education and support of women across the state. In May, we'll visit the operation of one such producer, Tabitha Fulgham, the owner of Hickory Heel Farm in Mabin, Mississippi. Fulgham says this year's conference helped her grow in a number of ways.
How to be confident in myself, how to manage my farm, and also to dream bigger. Like, there are a lot of opportunities out there for women farmers. They also educate us in the statistics. So therefore, then I find out, okay, what can be my niche? Where can I, these are my talents and skills, but they can also like taper you and lean you towards more of a niche in your area, just so you can be a little bit more successful in the area of farming in your local area.
Last week in our Southern Gardening segment, we talked about hanging baskets and their ability to bring new color to your home landscape. This week, the cousin to baskets, potted plants, an inexpensive and easy way to accessorize your indoor and outdoor homescape. Here's Gary Bachman with the DIY.
I love this time of year when the greenhouses and nurseries are getting all these gorgeous plants for our landscapes and gardens. Let's take a look at a few that I think are really spectacular for this year. Today's Southern Gardening is visiting Pine Hills Nursery and getting inspired for the coming gardening season. I love the Amore Petunia series with the unique heart-shaped pattern on every flower. Queen of Hearts features stunning bold magenta hearts with a sunny yellow backdrop. Amore Fluttering Heart will make your heart flutter with petals that appear to be stamped with royal purple hearts on a brilliant white backdrop. Here's a couple of good coleus selections to consider. Campfire is a vigorous grower in sun or shade. The foliage shines with its vibrant burnt orange color, reminding me of a hot glowing campfire. Party Time Lime is a festive coleus for the landscape and garden. This is a dense growing, compact structured plant that features a semi-trailing growth habit. As with all coleus selections in the landscape, remove any flower spikes that may develop in late summer or early fall. Gerbera daisies have bright, colorful flowers that are commonly planted in gardens as bedding plants or in containers. These garden favorites have long-lasting 3 to 4 inch flowers that come in numerous shades of yellow, white, pink, red, and even bicolors.
So be sure to visit your favorite independent garden center and get some great plants for your landscaping garden this year. I'm MSU Extension Horticulture Specialist Gary Bachman, and we'll see you next time on Southern Garden.
We'll take a break right here, but don't go away. Coming up in our Farm Week feature, a unique land lease program in Colorado with an added benefit. It's a program more than 150 years old that encourages a healthy relationship between ranchers who lease the land and, believe it or not, the state itself. Here's the kicker: the money that comes in from more than 2,000 such leases supports state-of-the-art schools in rural areas of Colorado. Trusting the ranchers, that's coming up on Farm Week. Don't go away.
I believe in people and their hopes, their aspirations and their faith, and their right to make their own plans and arrive at their own decisions, and their ability and power to enlarge their lives and plan for the happiness of those they love. I believe that education, of which extension work is an essential part, is basic in stimulating individual initiative, self-determination, and leadership. That these are the keys to democracy, and that people, when given facts they understand, will act not only in their self-interest, but also in the interest of society. Because I believe these things, I am an extension professional.
I believe in people and their hopes, their aspirations, and their faith. I believe in intellectual freedom to search for and present the truth without bias and with courteous tolerance toward the views of others. I believe that education is a lifelong process, and the greatest university is the home. That my success as a teacher is proportional to those qualities of mind and spirit that give me welcome entrance to the homes of the families I serve. Because I believe these things, I am an extension professional.
Time for the market report. Lots of movement. Fair to say we had a bit of a rebound from last week.
That's right, Mike. Turns out those 2 USDA reports that we talked about last week, they caused a huge buy-off in the market, but because supply is still low and demand is still high, at least in row crops, the prices have shot right back up again. And we'll be talking about that and more. But first, the numbers, then this once WASDE report, and finally, the fallout from all of that. Markets recovered last week, row crops shooting back up while livestock still trending down. Let's take a look. Last week's biggest loss, lumber down about $28.50. Lean hogs also falling, this time about 5 3/4 cents. Last week's biggest gain, soybeans back up over $1. Wheat and corn not too far behind, rising 68 1/4 and 35.5 cents respectively. So the April WASDE report dropped last week. Nothing too surprising, so let's dig in. Here's what it said.
U.S. wheat shows stable supplies. Feed and residual use lowered 10 million bushels. Exports lowered 15 million bushels. Ending stocks raised 25 million bushels, and projected season average farm price raised 10 cents to $7.60 per bushel. Global wheat shows supplies up 0.7 million tons due to higher stocks in Pakistan, Brazil, and Saudi Arabia. World consumption raised 3.8 million tons. Global trade lowered 3 million tons due to less exports from the EU, Ukraine, Brazil, and the U.S. U.S. corn shows lower feed and residual use, down 25 million bushels. corn for ethanol use raised $25 million. Ending stocks unchanged. Season average farm price up 15 cents to $5.80 per bushel. Global corn production higher, especially for Brazil, Indonesia, Pakistan, and the EU. Yield projections unchanged. Exports lower for Ukraine, Serbia, and Paraguay. Higher for Brazil, Canada, and India. Global ending stocks up 4.5 million tons. U.S. rice mostly unchanged from last month. Season average farm price lowered 20 cents to $15.70 per hundredweight. Global rice production down 1 million tons, mostly due to lowered production in Indonesia. Global trade increased 1.1 million tons with increased exports for India, Burma, Pakistan, and Thailand. Global use raised 0.1 million tons. Global ending stocks 1.7 tons lower. U.S. soybean exports raised 25 million bushels, seed use up, ending stocks lowered 25 million bushels. Season average farm price unchanged from last month at $13.25 per bushel. Soy oil price projected 70 cents per pound. Global soybean production reduced 3.1 million tons on lower crops for Brazil and Paraguay. Crush also lowered. China's soybean imports lowered 3 million tons. Global stocks lowered 0.4 million tons. U.S. pork and broiler production lowered. Turkey production also lower due to avian influenza, creating a tighter supply. Egg production lower for the same reason. Beef production raised. Beef and broiler exports raised. Pork imports raised. Turkey exports lowered. U.S. milk production raised on higher dairy cow numbers. Non-fat dry milk price raised while whey price lowered. 2022 all milk price forecast increased to $25.80 per hundredweight. U.S. cotton supply and demand forecast unchanged from last month. Marketing year price projected at 91 cents per pound. Global cotton shows higher production and lower consumption. Ending stocks up 800,000 bales. World trade projected 450,000 bales lower this month.
So what do the experts have to say? Market analyst Chris Robinson says a lot of the rising prices have to do with uncertainty in this growing season.
I think it came in actually a little bit negative, more than people thought if you dug into the numbers right away. In fact, we had a little blip right when it first came out. But we're back to, the market is very, very uncertain about what's going to happen with this growing season. So you saw that again with a really nice move. You mentioned it, the weekly changes for soybeans and corn. In the last 6 days, new crop corn, especially, this is a new crop issue. New crop corn at contract highs, 715, 716. You had November beans, which really got hammered on the acres report. That was a surprising acres number. That's come back strong. We were up $1.03 in the last 6 days, right back up to north of $14.50. So the market is going to make sure that farmers get out there and plant this crop, and I think they're worried about the weather. Really, at this point, that's what's the driver. Mr. Markets is telling you that anybody that had a knee-jerk reaction to that acres report, if you made an emotional decision, you probably wish you hadn't. That was a pretty big break and then another rally. I think also, too, for 7 years, 8 years, we were pretty spoiled. We didn't have this type of volatility. We started seeing this volatility really coming off the bottom in 2020. I don't think it's going away anytime soon, but at the end of the day, when you see $15 beans, $14.50 beans, and $7.50 corn, and it's not even tax day yet, this is a market that, for better or for worse, especially the corn market. This is a market, and you can go out and look at the deferred months, 22, 23. It just keeps grinding higher. So that speaks volumes.
And that's it for a deeper look into the markets. As we said, uncertainty seems to be the driving factor right now, and I don't see that ending anytime soon. Mike?
Thank you, Zach. In our feature this week, an unusual land lease program in Colorado. As you'll see, it's unique in that the program is designed to cultivate the relationship between the ranchers and the state. And every dollar of the lease money produces an added benefit. John Torpy has the story.
The Rocky Mountains make a picturesque backdrop for the daily routine of Nick Trainer, a fifth-generation cattle rancher based in Watkins, Colorado. When he began building his own ranch a decade ago, Trainer adopted a mindset that included holistic grazing. His dedication to the concept helped him find a unique leasing opportunity designed to help the land, his ranching operations, and schools across the state of Colorado.
I leased several private ranches getting started, and then when this lease came up, it was big enough. I was scattered around on several different smaller leases. This one was big enough that I could move my family here and we could ranch full time.
Trainer went after the opportunity to lease land from the Colorado State Land Board. The state agency owns roughly 3 million acres and is tasked by the Colorado legislature with leasing parcels of land to agricultural and energy interests. The length of the lease varies depending on the specific type of agreement. The rates are lower than private land leases, but higher than the amount federal government agencies, the Bureau of Land Management and Department of Forestry among them, charge for grazing. Trainer leases land on the 24,000-acre Lowry Ranch, located 30 minutes east of Denver. His lease allows him to graze 400 to 900 cattle annually, depending on the breed.
The way this lease is structured, we've got a really good inventory on the grass, and when drought events are coming, like right now, we're already in conversations about how those numbers need to be adjusted. We talk through the problem and come up with a plan.
Rather than a normal tenant and landlord arrangement, leases with the state of Colorado encourage the establishment of working relationships between the lessor and the lessee.
My main responsibility is to do inspections on our agriculture leases, which is probably my favorite part of my job. That's where I get to go out and meet with our lessees and get a tour through ranches and farms throughout Colorado. And
Rachel Turner is the district manager for the North Central District for the Colorado State Land Board. Turner's office encompasses 480,000 acres of Centennial State landscape.
As district manager, I do a lot of other things. So I work with oil and gas and renewable energies, work a lot with the Forest Service recently, and anything and everything that comes in.
The Colorado State Land Board contains 6 districts with a designated manager for each. Currently, the Colorado State Land Board has roughly 7,000 active leases, with over 2,000 devoted to agriculture. Turner notes, the lease agreements encourage teamwork between state land board officials and the farmers and ranchers of Colorado, with a shared purpose of caring for the land.
We really rely on our agriculture lessees. They are the knowledge base. They know that land better than anybody else. Like I said, many of them live next door or have been on the land since, some of them before statehood.
For Trainer, leasing with the Colorado State Land Board has been a major benefit for his operation.
It's more of a partnership. And that's what makes it work. And, that was one of the really appealing things to me whenever they put the RFP out there was, it was structured correctly from the get-go that, hey, we're going to work together to meet these common goals. And, by and large, and I think they'd say the same thing, it's been a huge success.
Many lessees have deep family roots in Colorado, with some lease agreements stretching back decades. That dedication to the land, coupled with the rancher's devotion to community, helps the State Land Board with the other half of its unique mission.
One of the biggest benefits of working with the state, the rent goes directly back to the school kids. And that's one huge benefit that our lessees really appreciate because they know it's going back into their community and it's being used for good.
Since 1876, funds accrued from state land board leases have been allocated to the state's Building Excellent Schools Today, or BEST program. Through the Colorado Department of Education, school districts can apply for BEST grants to help offset costs for construction projects and school improvements. To date, the BEST program has awarded over $1.6 billion in grants. The nearly century-and-a-half-year-old program has been labeled a lifeline for rural communities like Brush, Colorado, which was searching for a way to replace 2 aging schools with a limited amount of resources.
2016, we went to our voters and said we need essentially a $60 million middle school, high school, and the state will pay for half of it. Would you pay for the other half?
With the funds from the BEST program, the Brush Community School District was able to build a state-of-the-art combined middle and high school. The grant also helped the district find additional funds to provide new avenues of learning for students.
There are a lot of vocations out there that don't require a typical 4-year or 6-year college degree. And so we were very intentional about our what's called CTE, Career and Technical Ed programs, and making sure that we're providing our students opportunities in as many different areas as possible.
Opened in 2019, the new Brush School boasts a fully certified USDA kitchen and multiple skilled labor and technical platforms. The school aims to help the community thrive while educating the next generation.
Whatever we can do, we need to do, because otherwise we are unintentionally failing the next generation that's going to be taking care of you and me and running our world.
Trainer, Wilson, and Turner all agree that whether you are a cattle rancher leasing state land, a state land board employee taking care of the land, or an educator striving to provide the best learning experience, the entire community wins in the end.
It's not only today's school children, but we're properly managing land for future generations as well.
Something you don't hear too much about, farmers and ranchers getting along with the government. Well, next time on Farm Week, something else you don't hear too much about, pain management for animals in the American food chain.
Pain meds for those animals are virtually non-existent, and there are a lot of reasons for that, but experts have long sought pain relief for such animals, though getting the FDA to approve it has been complex.
Research into new options is being done, though. What do they look like? We'll find out next time on Farm Week.
Remember, if you missed a story, look for past episodes of Farm Week on our website at farmweek.tv.
And don't forget to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube as well. We'll see you next week. Thanks for watching.